May 21st, here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour, starting with the death of Iran's president. Iran has declared a 5-day mourning period for President Ibrahim Raisi, who was killed in a helicopter crash. The country's 14th presidential elections will be held on June 28th to elect new leadership. The International Criminal Court is seeking arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Hamas leaders in Gaza for war crimes. Israel has slammed the ICC decision. The leaders of South Korea and the UK are co-hosting the AI Seoul Summit for 2 days from today. World and business leaders are putting their heads together on ways to foster innovation, safety, and inclusivity in artificial intelligence. Iran began a 5 days of mourning on Monday following the death of the country's president in a helicopter crash the day before. Tehran also said there will be a presidential election late next month. Our Shin Se-byuk starts us off.
Iran declared a 5-day national mourning period on Monday following the death of President Ibrahim Raisi in a helicopter crash. Mourners filled the streets in major cities, including the capital Tehran, with memorial prayer gatherings held in various squares, creating a somber atmosphere.
Well, we are all sad about this news. He was a president of the people, and we lost a president who worked tirelessly for our nation.
President Ibrahim Raisi and 8 others, including his foreign minister, were aboard a helicopter that crashed on Sunday. The wreckage was found on Monday in a mountainous region of northwest Iran. Iranian state media and government officials have blamed severe weather conditions for the crash. Reports indicated that the search efforts were hindered by the rough conditions surrounding the crash site. President Raisi's funeral will be held on May 22nd in Tehran. Meanwhile, the Iranian government said a presidential election will be held on June 28th in accordance with constitutional provisions. The Iranian constitution mandates that, in the event of a presidential vacancy, a direct election for a new president must be held within 50 days. Until the new president is elected, First Vice President Mohammad Mokhber will serve as acting president. In response to Raisi's death, the U.S. on Monday issued an official statement through the State Department expressing condolences for the death of President Ibrahim Raisi, his foreign minister, and others in the helicopter crash in northwest Iran. However, Washington also said hardliner Raisi had, quote, blood on his hands, pointing to Iran's support for terrorist groups as well as human rights abuses in the country, while making it clear that the U.S. had no involvement in the crash. Shin Se-byuk, Arirang News.
Now, what next for Iran after President Raisi's death? We turn to Professor Robert Lawrence this morning for what lies ahead for the mourning country. Welcome.
Morning. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us. Harsh weather conditions are reportedly what caused the tragic crash, but there are conspiracy theories saying there may have been more to the crash. Why is that?
Well, first of all, Iran's no stranger to high-level assassinations, right? We saw this with Qasem Soleimani a few years ago, and even a month ago with the Israeli attack on the Iranian embassy in Damascus. So, inevitably, some in the country will come to the conclusion that it was Mossad and or the CIA who did this. Further complicating that line of thinking is that the late president was coming from the Azerbaijani border, and Azerbaijan and Israel have close ties, and that Azerbaijan supplies about 40% of Israel's oil, and Azerbaijan is the second biggest consumer of Israeli military material. So this is going to there's a lot of fertile ground for conspiracy theories to grow. On top of this, domestically, the supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, his son is one of the 2 people who were believed to be in the race to succeed the supreme leader, the other one being the late president. Now that the late president is gone, some domestically might come to the conclusion that there was foul play there as well. In reality, we really don't know enough information about anything to declare there being foul play. We don't know if it's mechanical failure or the weather as reported. But you know, the conspiratorial nature of some politics, politics in some countries, kind of breed fertile ground for this. So I think we'll see a lot more conspiracy theories come out in the next few weeks.
Right. Because the president has died in office, the question is who will take over the leadership now? And there will be an early election on June 28th. Professor Lawrence, let's talk about that.
Right. Well, according to Article 131 of the Iranian Constitution, the first vice president, now former first vice president Mohammad Mokbad, has to form a council with the head of the judiciary and the speaker of the legislative body. And it's their duty to conduct elections within 50 days. I believe it's been announced that there's going to be an election in late June, but that could be pushed back. They have 50 days to complete it.
Well, then, will a new leadership change the course of Iranian political and foreign policies compared to what, Raisi has done so far?
Well, domestically, there's a chance that they could pick somebody who's less inclined to be so heavy-handed in how they treat dissenters, right? That's been largely unpopular amongst the youth vote, especially the legislative elections this March had very low voter turnout, which was partially seen as a result of this heavy-handed way of dealing with protesters. So there's that possibility, but I think that's relatively unlikely given the makeup of the Guardian Council and the Assembly of Experts who kind of control the way that elections are held in Iran. Foreign policy-wise, I don't believe that there'll be much of a change from the status quo. Iran has had largely successful foreign policy under Raisi. They've improved ties with Russia and China. They've entered into a rapprochement with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and other Gulf countries, and they've been able to efficaciously utilize regional proxies and their axis of resistance to push their regional agenda while receiving very substantial repercussions back home. So I think you're looking at more of the status quo.
Would you say same status quo for the Israel-Hamas war as well?
I would. In fact, the real policy-making power comes through the supreme leader. And the IRGC, and both of those are still very well intact. The Israel-Hamas war, as far as from the viewpoint of Tehran, they've prevented what was an ongoing rapprochement between Turkey and Israel. They prevented any expansion of the Abraham Accords for the time being. Of course, this is just for the time being, but and they've also been able again to utilize and demonstrate the effectiveness of regional proxies. Additionally, I would say that they've had a PR victory in global politics, and that they've kind of championed the global South in this conflict. So I don't see what incentive they would have to change course right now. In the long term, should there be a more reform-minded successor to Ali Khamenei when the time comes, things might change. But in the short term, I don't see there being a big shift.
I see. Well, Washington expressed condolences while saying that Raisi had blood on his hands. Will the change of Iranian leadership be a headache for the U.S. ahead of its presidential election in November especially, or not as much? What do you think?
Well, the presidential election in November is going to be complicated for several reasons in the United States, and there's certainly the Israeli-Hamas conflict is going to be a big talking point, and U.S. policy in the Middle East in general, and that's intrinsically geared towards our relationship with Iran and how we've dealt with Iran. It's going to be a big talking point. And I think Biden's going to come under a lot of criticism from Trump or whoever else might be on stage in any of those debates. However, from a Washington point of view, I don't think they're going to see much difference. Whoever's going to replace Raisi, given the makeup of the Guardian Council and the Assembly of Experts, is going to be a like-minded individual who's going to do the Supreme Leader's bidding, I believe. So I don't think there'll be much of a change. Thus, the difference between what that conversation would have been during the election if it were Raisi as president or whoever his successor is, I don't think really changes the equation in Washington, U.S. electoral politics.
All right, Professor Lauren, thank you so much for your insight this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me. You have a wonderful day.
You too. The International Criminal Court prosecutors are applying for arrest warrants for Israeli and Hamas leaders over allegations of war crimes related to the conflict in Gaza. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Hamas leader in Gaza, Yahya Sinwar, are among those named. Lee Seung-jae reports.
With thousands of civilians dead since the war between Israel and Hamas in Gaza, the International Criminal Court is now seeking arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Hamas's leader in Gaza, Yahya Sinwar. According to the ICC's chief prosecutor Karim Khan on Monday, the court is seeking warrants for both men on charges of war crimes and crimes against humanity over the October 7th attacks on Israel and the subsequent war in Gaza. 2 other Hamas leaders are set to be subject to the warrant, while Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant's arrest warrant is also being sought by the prosecution. The Israeli Prime Minister slammed the court's decision to issue the arrest warrant against him, calling it absurd, adding that the move was meant to target all of Israel.
The absurd and deceitful warrant of the prosecutor in The Hague is aimed not only against Israel's Prime Minister and Defense Minister, it is aimed against the entire state of Israel. It is aimed against the IDF soldiers who are fighting with the utmost bravery against the vile murderers of Hamas who attacked us with horrendous brutality on October 7th.
Meanwhile, U.S. President Joe Biden also criticized the ICC's decision, calling it outrageous that it's seeking to arrest Netanyahu and other Israeli leaders. He stressed that there is no equivalence between Israel and Hamas. Pundits say that while it's unlikely that the Israeli and Hamas leaders will actually face prosecution, the arrest warrant could make it difficult for them to travel overseas, while a trial in the court would be especially embarrassing for the Israeli government. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Despite 3 months passing since the junior doctors began walking out of their workplaces in protest over the government's planned medical school admissions quota hike, those doctors now may face delays in getting medical fellowships. Despite the health minister's call for junior doctors to return to work by Monday, the vast majority of the 12,020 doctors continue their collective action. According to Health Minister Cho Kyu-hong, under the relevant law, junior doctors are only allowed to log up to 3 months of absences if they are to qualify for next year's specialty certification exam. 20 doctors began their protest on February 19th. South Korea and the United Kingdom will co-host the AI Seoul Summit this week, beginning today. It's expected to set out a vision for governing the technology, expanding on the declaration made at the AI Safety Summit in England last year. Our Oh Soo-young tells us what to expect.
South Korea and Britain are working to reach a joint statement with world leaders on advancing innovation, safety and inclusivity in artificial intelligence in a virtual summit co-hosted by the 2 nations. In a briefing Monday, South Korea's top office said the AI Seoul Summit will kick off on Tuesday, with the leaders of G7 nations, Singapore and Australia invited to follow up on the first AI Safety Summit last November. While the Bletchley Park Summit focused on addressing threats to humanity posed by the fast-evolving technology, this whole session will expand the agenda to include innovation and inclusivity, with leaders expected to adopt an agreement on the way forward. Heads of international organizations, including the United Nations and the European Union, as well as global tech giants like Samsung, Naver, Google, Amazon and OpenAI, have also been invited.
Participants will hold a balanced discussion on not only the risks posed by AI, but also its positive aspects and how AI can contribute to humanity.
In a joint op-ed on Monday, President Yoon Suk-yeol and British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak emphasised the need for global standards to regulate and mitigate risks posed by AI, to transform lives for the better and stop the global race to the bottom. They said the AI Seoul Summit is expected to set out a vision for multilateral governance of the technology to tackle global challenges such as poverty and climate change. President Yoon, beginning with his New York initiative in 2022, has actively promoted global efforts to form norms on advancing digital innovation for the benefit of humanity, whilst expanding access and rights to gain from technology. On the second day of the summit, a ministerial session and the AI Global Forum will take place offline to expand the conversation.
The AI Global Forum aims to advance discussions with various stakeholders, including governments, firms, experts and civil society, under the theme of governance for embracing AI safety innovation.
A presidential official told reporters China was not invited to join the leaders' meeting, in line with the first AI Safety Summit, but Beijing has agreed to participate in the ministerial session on Wednesday. Acknowledging the differences on governing technology, namely between liberal democracies and Beijing, the official said such issues are likely to be discussed throughout the summit. Yoon's office says by leading the comprehensive conversation on setting digital standards, South Korea hopes to expand its global reach as a technological leader and also become one of the world's top 3 powers in artificial intelligence. Oseong, Arirang News.
South Korea's Unification Minister held a press conference on Monday where he revealed some changes to the organization of the North Korean Workers' Party and what appears to be Pyongyang's effort to deny the idea of reunification. Our North Korean Affairs correspondent Kim Jung-sil has the details.
Unification Minister Kim Yong-ho revealed new findings on North Korea while reaffirming Seoul's policy against the regime in a press conference on Monday.
The North hasn't announced it yet, but its United Front Department has renamed the Workers' Party Central Committee Bureau 10, and its functions have been centralized on psychological warfare.
North Korea's United Front Department served as the counterpart to South Korea's Ministry of Unification. A senior ministry official said the change means Pyongyang is now only focusing on espionage against the South and not efforts related to reunification. Other experts said it was notable that the North had decided to keep the department intact, although under a different name. When asked about former President Moon Jae-in's recent memoir in which he wrote he trusted Kim Jong-un's sincerity, that he has no intention of using nuclear weapons, the minister responded as follows.
What's most important is to read our counterparts' intention and capability. North Korea has the capability to threaten us through its nuclear and missile development. If we only focus on its intention while overlooking its ability, this could lead to a misjudgment of the state.
He said one of the toughest challenges remaining was Pyongyang's refusal to engage in dialogue.
The inter-Korean communication channel should resume regardless of the political and military situation, at least for humanitarian purposes and disaster response measures. It's urgent to restore such channels ahead of the monsoon season.
The minister plans to visit Sunnier Beach this Friday along with U.S. Special Envoy Julie Turner, where 16-year-old Kim Young-nam was abducted by the North in 1978 to raise awareness of the issue. Kim Jung-sil, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Kim Si-young, and now we turn to stories from around the world. Following the inauguration of Taiwan's new president, Lai Ching-te, Beijing's foreign ministry reacted on Monday, saying that Taiwan independence is a dead end and that succession is doomed to fail. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Wang Wenbin said in a news conference following Lai's inauguration that Taiwan's independence will fail no matter under what guise or what banner. Chen Binhua, a spokesperson for Beijing's State Council Taiwan Affairs Office, said that Taiwan's Lai sent a dangerous signal of seeking Taiwan independence in his inauguration speech. Chen firmly added that China will never tolerate any Taiwan independence separatist acts in any form. The newly inaugurated president of Taiwan, 64-year-old Lai Ching-te, asked China in his inauguration speech to stop its military and political threats, saying that Beijing had to peacefully respect the choice of the Taiwanese people. Wikileaks founder Julian Assange has been granted permission to appeal his extradition to the United States. The UK High Court ruled in the whistleblower's favour on Monday, meaning Assange will now be able to appeal the US assurances over how his US trial would be conducted and whether his right to free speech would be infringed. In court, two judges said that they have granted full appeal to Assange on the basis that he might be discriminated against in the US legal proceedings, as the Australian-born Wikileaks founder is a foreign national. Assange has been resisting extradition from the UK for over a decade after his Wikileaks website leaked confidential US documents in 2010 and 2011 on the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, among others, for which the US charged him with acts of espionage. After the court case, his wife, Stella Assange, said that now is the right moment for US to drop the case. Italy's presidential estate in Rome marked World Bee Day 2024 on Monday, with a celebration following this year's theme, Be Engaged with Youth. The Director General of the UN's Food and Agricultural Organization spoke at the event, saying that young people should learn more about bees and pollinators, including modern technologies, while emphasizing the vital role of bees in agriculture, biodiversity, and ecological balance. Educational panels on bees were also erected around the estate. Attendees included Italy's Agriculture Minister, the President of the International Federation of Beekeepers Associations, and a group of young students. The Japanese animation studio, Studio Ghibli, has been awarded an honorary Palme d'Or on Monday at the 77 Cannes Film Festival. Goro Miyazaki, the son of the famed founder of Studio Ghibli, Hayao Miyazaki, received the award on behalf of the studio, thanking the audience during a standing ovation following a screening of 4 new short films written and directed by his father. Hayao's son, Goro Miyazaki, is also a film director and the creative development director of the Ghibli Park. Studio Ghibli also won this year's Oscar for Best Animated Feature in March for the animated film The Boy and the Heron.
Good morning. Southern provinces got a taste of summer yesterday, but today the heat arrives for western regions, with temperatures rising to as much as 28 degrees here in the capital. Meanwhile, East Coast regions remain breezy with highs in the upper teens this afternoon. A bit foggy and some cloudy skies to start off the day in the capital area, but more sunshine will be rolling in as the day goes on. UV rays will be very high for most of West and Jeju Island today, so please use your sun protection items wisely to protect against overexposure to the strong sunlight. Back to the readings now. Afternoon highs in central regions will be 1 to 7 degrees higher this afternoon at 28 degrees here in Seoul and Daejeon this afternoon. Meanwhile, Busan and surrounding areas notice much cooler highs at 22 degrees over in Busan. A dry advisory is in place for the mountainous regions of Jeju Island. Now, early summer weather continues through the week, with nationwide rain in the forecast on Sunday, possibly into next Monday. With that in mind, let's take a look at the international weather conditions. We thank you for watching New Day at Arirang. We'll be back tomorrow for Wednesday's edition at the same time, 9 a.m. Korea time.